So today we're going to be looking at the best player in each position, and we're going to be picking the top 5. This is top to bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I have ordered them. Keepers, a little bit more different. To be honest, again, with this list, you're going to have a lot of kind of different opinions, especially the top 5 can be very difficult as you get into the later positions. But I think with goalkeepers, I could literally put any order and there would always be someone who wanted something different. Because when it comes to keepers, they are so up and down in terms of opinion. I'm always a fan of Van der Sar. Always been incredible in the past 5, 6 years. Whenever icons came out, kind of after a couple of years and they settled, Van der Sar just came out on top for me. From like FIFA 18 onwards, he's been number 1. Alisson, always been a solid second this year especially. I would then go Donnarumma, and that's where I think some people could argue that Cech would be better than Alisson Donnarumma, or potentially you'd see a Casillas rather than a Yashin. But for me, it would go Van der Sar, Alisson, Donnarumma, Cech, and then I've gone with Yashin over Casillas. Are you looking for coins to improve your team? Then you need to head over to lootbar.gg, the most reliable and the best coin service you can find. Also, they have incredible 24-hour manual customer service that you physically cannot find anywhere else. But before finishing on lootbar.gg, make sure you are using JT11 to get 8% off coupon. Once you've gone through the payment, you'll be able to get your coins within the next 24 hours. Absolutely guaranteed. Also, with the code, you'll be able to get 5% more coins on every transaction. Make sure you do click the link either in the description or down in the comment section below. Now, when it comes to left backs, again, there's a very, very top end meta here. It's funny to see the comparison between left backs and right backs because genuinely the level that we've got here is crazy. You could pick any of these and be more than happy. For me, I've gone with Grimaldo as number 5. Just behind Alphonso. Now, it is down to preference for me because Grimaldo most definitely is incredible. He's got the anticipate, he's got the rapid plus, which is nice, and a pinged pass. But for me with Alphonso, especially as kind of like an overlapping left back, having that ability as well, also having the big defending and physical upgrade, having that whipped pass is absolutely massive. Both of them have got a defensive playstyle. One of them, well, both of them have got the passing, but personally for me, Davies has got the better passing for the actual left back position, and both of them have got a playstyle plus on their running time. Ferland Mendy, honestly, I was debating whether I prefer him or Sakina, but because Ferland is just an overall monster. Like genuinely, this card is a monster. From the gold card all the way up, every card has got that top end value. But I must admit, after using a Sakina for a few games, I think she might genuinely have it this year. The whipped pass, the rapid, and the block, I think it just about beats out Ferland for me, but not by much. Now, the top end of any position is only marginal. It's not like they are absolutely light years above. It is just slight on every decision. And sometimes you could argue Teo for me is number 1 no matter what. 97, he's number 1 no matter. I think you could argue between 2 and 3, 3 and 4. You could even argue between putting Sakina in 5 if you really wanted to. But for me, that is going to be my left backs. Now into the right backs. Now don't get me wrong, we've got incredible talent here, but just the amount of lack of team of the seasons is absolutely crazy. Frimpong was one that definitely took the right back position by storm this year. I don't think we've ever seen a 97 right back this early on into the game. We might have, we definitely might have, but I can't remember a right back because normally left back and right backs tended to be like 92, 93, 94 at an absolute push. Like I can remember, like, I think it was Dani Alves and Marcelo getting team of the year after year, and they just didn't push their ratings up. Whereas Frimpong, even from his team of the year, being 94 that early on into the game, you knew full well that they were coming with the ratings. We then look at the kind of 2 to 5 spot. Cafu and Alberto are very interchangeable. Personally for me, I've played a lot more with Cafu, and I think with Alberto, he tends to be better at that centre-back role as he can obviously play it. But he is now starting to become more of a right-back again, purely down to what centre-backs we actually have in the game. There is so many top end. He's kind of being forced back on that right-back, as you can see, because we don't have as many in the field. Battle, to be honest, is a good card. I think as an SBC, fantastic to be able to get a 95 just brilliant in herself, but I don't think she does crop out Cafu and Alberto just yet. Maybe in a footage version later on down the line she might, but I don't think the 95 takes them just yet. Then we have Zambrotta. Personally, I would probably say he would be the next best shout for me. We've obviously got quite a few of the cheaper ones in Klaus. Ben White's obviously a name up there, but as a top 5, I will definitely choose this man. Mainly that 5-5 is looking very nice. The right wing back, the anticipate, the relentless. He has got that ability for him. Now, the centre backs, I was debating doing 10, but then I was like, actually, it's the top 5. That's the whole point. I know you can technically have 2 of this position, but we've gone with my personal top 5. And the number 5 spot was very hard to go with because there's a lot of contenders. I don't think there's any qualms with Virgil van Dijk being number 1. I think we can all agree to have a centre-back still from the very first team of the season to now and still be 5.8 mil is nuts. Like that's just crazy money. Then we have the arguments, because I absolutely love this version of Ramos. You could see as soon as he came out how good he genuinely will be. Anticipate is a number 1 trait for me. Then we have the slide tackle. I've come to love it thanks to Maldini. And then power header, it's decent enough. I'll absolutely take it. We then have Bastoni. Bastoni is just beautiful. Look at the card. 90 on the pace, 98 defending is just nuts. Then he has the 95 physical. Genuinely with this card, you could put an engine on and still be fine. Like that is just nuts in itself. To be able to not put any defending on him is absolutely crazy. So people are going for the catalyst for him just to max out as much pace as possible, but then also get a bit of passing as well. So you'd end up with 98 pace, 92 passing. I mean, that kind of tells you the card in itself. Bisek has wowed everybody. I love Hanko in the game, and I think as a cheap beast, if you're putting him in like the top 5 cheapest players that are worth it, he's up there. But Bisek has risen in price over the past few weeks. Obviously in Serie A he's gone up the most because he now has teammates. The Bastoni Bisek link is going to be crazy, but he is phenomenal. And to be honest, he doesn't even have the greatest play star pluses. That is how good this card is. He's a monster. Now you've got the arguments of Rudiger, Upamecano, Konate, Koyunde. Who else is there? There's quite a few. Even Saliba, to be honest. But, and you could throw Maldini in there as well. I think Maldini is definitely worth the shout. But I think what Rio brings for me has always been fantastic. The SBC, a little bit expensive. I'm not going to lie. That for me is a little bit expensive to be able to do when you can go get cheaper options. You don't always need the top 5. But in terms of ability in the game, I've always rated him as one of the top. So I've got to stick with my guns. Like I said, you could argue Rudiger, 100%. You could even argue Saliba. I think Saliba is wonderful. But it's marginal. So for me, I think 1, 2... to be honest, I think 1 to 4, there's no arguments. You could put them in any variation. Obviously, I think it's Virgil, Ramos for me, number 1 and number 2, easy. Then you could argue between Bastoni and Bisek, and you could definitely argue a number 5. Now, when it comes to CDMs, I've tried CDM, centre mid, cam. I've kind of gone left wing, right wing, and I've also gone centre forward. So if the player that you're thinking in this position could be there, I've tried to stick to their specific positions. It doesn't always work out, but I've tried at least to kind of go with the DMs being actual DMs in games. And like with centre forwards, it may not be their number 1 position, but they are in the game at that point. So just bear with me there. Now, in terms of DMs, I think it's very difficult because I think the top 3 in Rodri, Rice and Vieira are very interchangeable. I was very close to going with Vieira over the top, and I'm still kind of debating it in my head a little bit, but I just think the upgrade from Rice and Rodri, both being literally the same player, like there is marginal difference here, there and everywhere. Like Rodri's obviously got the 5-star weak foot, got the anticipate for him, whereas Rice has the intercept, which is always good. You've got the block versus kind of like the pinged pass. You've got the relentless versus a power shot. Depending on what you like is what the card is kind of dependent on. Obviously, Rice is a bit more kind of pacey. Rodri's got a little bit more shooting. They've both got the same dribbling, defending, passing, and physical. It's literally the same card, and I think both of them are relatively the same height, 6'1" and 6'3", so a little bit, inches count obviously, but terrible. But in terms of height in the game, it's not going to be like massively noticeable, like unless it's the difference between like 6 foot and 6'4", 6'5". That's going to be the real big change. Whereas I think Patrick is just dominant in that CDM role. So you could argue between them. I just personally prefer Rodri and Rice. Patrick definitely is a 1, 2 or 3 spot for you. Now with the other two, Grace, I think, is phenomenal, and I've had a lot of games with her. She is part of the midfield at the moment, and I just think, in terms of what she brings, is just nuts. Defensively is insane. She can carry the ball forward a little bit, but the defensive nature of her is just second to none. And Yaya Toure, as much as I think there could be other CDMs you could go with, I think very much for the same reasons that Vieira's here, even though I don't think the stats are as impressive at the moment. When we get the upgrade, it most definitely will change. I just think he is that imposing when it comes to being in that CDM role. You can more than likely happily go with like a Vieira-Toure partnership and be more than happy in that CDM roles. Centre mid is full of talent. As you can imagine, it's quite an easy one. Again, I think you could argue between kind of some spots, but Bellingham obviously is number one. I genuinely don't think there's a better card than that. 7.3 mil. It is just outstanding in every way. I think if we were to get the footage, honestly, they've not really given much wiggle room for anything, because if England manage to go quite far, depending on if they do man of the matches, if they do like a road to the final in the Euros, which I can imagine they probably will, or like a knockout, Bellingham's only got 2 ratings to go until he's a 99, unless I doubt they'll go quadruple play stop pluses straight after going triple. That I can imagine would be more footies, but they are not giving you wiggle room here. I can imagine if they were to go a 98 and then say he did even better, like he scored 5 goals in one game and had to give him a 99, I'd imagine the footies would just be a quadruple play stop plus. It would have to force their hand, but he's number 1, no question. Now, 2, 3, 4 and 5. 5, I've definitely had the most experience with, because Putellas has been in the team from Team of the Year and now since the day of launch for the Team of the Season moments, and she is just nuts, like genuinely incredible. The play on her, the agility balance, bringing the ball forward, the shooting, defending, arguable. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say she's incredible there. You go and whack the anchor on her, the shadow, whatever you want to do, and she gets by with it. But on the ball, passing, shooting, bit of defending and pace are incredible. Now, obviously, in front of her, you've got Modric, Vitinha, and also Valverde. Valverde's been a favourite of mine from the gold card. I've been waiting for this 96, and I think he did deliver. Even though I kind of still stand here and think, I really wish everything was above 90. Like, I know it's only one stat. I'm just gutted because Vitinha got it, and Vitinha got it the week before. He's a 96. He's got the 5-5 as well. Why can't my Valverde have it? But there must be a reason. I can guarantee they'll probably break him if they go over 90, because he genuinely is that good. Whereas I do think then a lot of people could argue between Vitinha and Modric. I personally preferred Vitinha when I played with him. Modric is a great 5-5, and I think both of them in their own right are brilliant. They're both the same height. They both have pretty much the same stats. But as a balanced player, I think Vitinha was better. Modric is better at that passing, bringing the ball forward game, rather than the defending physical aspect. Now, when we look at cams, I think number 1 kind of sells itself, really. Pele as a cam is just nuts. You could argue he could be a striker. He could be a centre forward. His position for me at this point has always been a cam to start with. Centre forward was kind of like that secondary, but I think cam for me is a perfect example here, especially with the strikers that we do have. I think if you was to pack a Pele, and then you've already got, say, like the cheaper option, you've got like a Sorloth and say someone like a Giroud, or you've done an Mbappe or Eusebio SBC, you are more than likely to go and drop Pele into that cam role and assist the strikers as well as scoring, because he is that good. Other cams alike. Now, I must admit, I like De Bruyne, but I don't think this year was it for him. I've kind of put him second, but now I'm thinking about him, looking at the stats again, I don't know if I would actually put him second. I think in terms of passing, dribbling is just beautiful, but thinking of kind of your Fodens, your Wirtz, your Musialas, they have that as well. The passing's most definitely not terrible. Like, granted, De Bruyne does have 99, and I think that's where the cam role really kind of specifies. Whereas I think with Foden, he's a little bit different to De Bruyne, like how the other way goes. De Bruyne's the passing, he's got decent dribbling, and he'll definitely get the ball forward. Whereas I think Foden is more the carrier of the ball. His dribbling is just incredible. Pace is absolutely second to none, and his left stick dribbling is just next level in itself. So you could argue where you'd prefer. I think De Bruyne is still incredible in the game, but I do think Foden as a ball carrier is much better. And you could argue in real life as well, to be fair, in terms of how they play and how they kind of set up. That is how it is. Kevin De Bruyne is a magician of the pass, and that kind of just emulate in the game as well, if you are passing inclined. Whereas I do think Wirtz and Musiala, both of them are very similar in themselves as well. They're set up pretty much the same. Pace-wise is very high. Shooting is, passing is, dribbling's absolutely up there. And then there's no defensive ability. That kind of is the same, really. And both technical. First touch versus trickster, power shot versus incisive pass. It is very similar in debate. And I think for them four, you could argue all four positions and see who kind of comes out the win. Oh, they love giving us a left wing, don't they? This is a star-studded lineup. Well, I was trying to hold off on this video because I knew Neymar was going to come at some point. He has broken everything. 10.5 mil. I would love this card. Just look at him. 5'5", 98 pace, 99 dribbling. The shooting's much better. Decent passing. Physicality, fair enough, which we don't need. He is beautiful. He's definitely my number one spot. I've got Vinny, and I still would take Neymar over him. Genuinely, Vinny is nuts in himself, but Neymar is always going to be that breadwinner. He's absolutely crazy with stats. And this is it. To be honest, between the first four, I don't think there's much of a debate. Doku, I kind of like, but I think he's more the assisting winger, whereas I would drive forward and shoot with Neymar, Vinny, Ronaldinho and Leao. Doku's got that whipped pass. He's going to be beautiful for that Soloff, Giroud, kind of Lewandowski, Drogba sort of build. He's got to be beautiful for that. That rapid with a 99 pace into the whipped pass, maybe going for a power every now and then, is going to be a great combination. Whereas I think these are out and out dominance. Neymar and Vinny are very similar, and to be honest, you could throw Ronaldinho in there. Ronaldinho takes his crown back once he gets another upgrade, because in game, I think Ronaldinho trumps everybody with the higher card. But when we've got Neymar and Vinny, who are both very, very similar to Ronaldinho's style, it's very dribbling-esque. The passing's there. The pace is definitely up in the top end of cards. I do think Ronaldinho would be better. And I do think the main factor at the moment for Ronaldinho is body type and stats are carrying him. The Playstyle Plus, not as much. I think they are absolutely woeful, so I'm hoping for a complete redesign of Ronaldinho in a 97-98 version, if we do get it during footies. Leao, arguably a striker, to be honest. I think he is just a breath of fresh air when it comes to a left wing. I think for me, I would always go striker, but that would all depend on your strikers as well. Like I said, if you've already got an R9 and Mbappe, one of them's got to go left wing. Mbappe would probably be my shout there, but he is still phenomenal in any position. He goes to like a 98 striker with a sniper chem style. Just outstanding. And then the arguments were between Doku and also Felix. I like Felix, but I think for me, Doku just beats him out. I think there's like 100k difference between them or so. So they are still both very expensive, and it would depend on who you prefer. But I do think Doku just slightly nudges it for me. Now, in terms of right wing, when it comes to like the medium to low value, it seems like we have absolutely none. But when we look at the top, there's a decent selection. Dembele for me would always be number one. I think Hansen's team of the year before Dembele got this version, because he got the fantasy. It was Hansen was always on top. She just was that card. It was what, a 90, was it a 97? Yeah, it was a 97 team of the year. She's obviously gone for the same as well. She's got herself the flair. It's not the greatest in the world. They've both got rapid. They've both got finesse shot plus. But I do think the pinged pass definitely goes over the flare in my opinion. And they both are very similar in their own aspects. But for me, Dembele has always been number one. I loved his gold card. We loved the road to the knockout. Then into the fantasy that was just a bit expensive. You kind of just had to wait for that team of the season. But them two are easily 1 and 2. Salah easily goes in number 3. I think Salah this year has kind of been a little bit up and down depending on what you want. With Salah, it's always been kind of like how I see Lewandowski and Kane, and same with Griezmann, to be fair as well. Some players, their upgrades are nice, but they never take them to that next level where you want them. You can obviously happily pack him, but I'm not paying 2 mil for a 90 Salah. I would happily pay 2 mil for a 95 Salah as it comes to the end of the game cycle, because he's going to be much better in the upgrade. I think there's so many increments of Salah that it's just crazy to think that you try and go one after the other. We ended up with an 89 base, 90, 91, 91, 91, 92, 92, 94, 94, 95. Like, imagine trying to go for each one. I think the player of the month was probably quite worth it if you was doing him, because then at least you could have kind of just skipped the rest of the values and then went for the 95. But if you're trying to get every upgrade for him, I might as well just wait for team of the season and just have a kind of a saver, a placeholder for him, because right wing, it's you need it, but I mean, as in, it's not crazy if you don't have the best card in there. We've been quite happy with Elwaran. We've now got Diani in there. SBCs this year have just held that space, meaning we can wait to try and pack one of the top ones. Jarzinho, I think, is just that little bit better than Saka in my opinion, and I do think Saka as well, if Salah weren't here, he might have been higher rated, or if, at least if he was in a different league, he might have been. But I do think when it comes to Saka, he's just... he never has been that card for me. We tried his kind of, what was it, his road... is it a road to the final or road to the knockout did he get? Oh, team of the group stage, of course. Oh, no, he did get a road to the knockout. I was going to say, they one had a play style, one didn't. And it was good. Like, the pace is fantastic on him. But there was just no end product for him. And that was kind of weird, because especially at the time of Saka glowing up throughout the year, I kind of used a right wing to score as well. And every Saka card that I went for just didn't have it in comparison to the SBCs. But this card is definitely a nice upgrade for him. I just don't think it beats out the top 4 in my opinion. Now you probably can see why I've got a centre forward spot. We've got some of the best centre forwards in the game. Gullit, Messi, Cruyff, Dybala and Di Maria. Now, I am surprised we didn't get a Benzema yet. If we are getting a final mixed team but with Ultimate, I don't know if they're going for a Ultimate Mix League. So you have Messi, you have obviously Neymar and all of them in one team. Or they go and do another mixed and kind of just add new players. But Benzema isn't in it regardless. Then obviously when we look at kind of what we're going for here, centre forward wise doesn't mean that that's where they're going to play, because Gullit is most definitely more CDM centre mid. Messi could be centre forward cam or striker. Cruyff is definitely striker. Dybala could argue centre forward, and then Di Maria, I would say centre forward cam would be his secondary position. Right wing would definitely be number 1. But in terms of their actual position that comes on the card, these are some of the best, and I don't think there's an argument for the list. The only thing I think you could argue, depending on what position you're taking them in, is Messi and Cruyff. Are they technically better than Gullit in the position they go into? So is Messi a better striker than Gullit is a CDM? Is Cruyff exactly the same? Is Messi a better right wing than Gullit's a CDM? That's where you argue personally. And then I think Di Maria and Dybala would be this way round. Di Maria, as soon as he came out, you knew full well he was going to be a baller with that dribbling. Whereas Dybala is always the same as well. He's another one on the list, waiting for that team of the season, because you know he always delivers the goods. And then finally, the strikers. Now, this list is very difficult. Mbappe paves himself there. I don't think you could ever argue that Mbappe is the best striker in the game, no questions. I've also tried, I probably should have said this earlier, I'm not putting duplicates in here because I reckon I'd just have 5 Mbappes. And that goes for the same with like a Virgil or anybody like that. Mbappe's number 1. Now, I think you could argue the second spot, because I feel like a lot of people don't really like R9 anymore. From the base version, which isn't necessarily that much worse than this card, a lot of people think he is not worth it anymore. I think R9 is still in-game one of the best strikers, if not the second, in my opinion, best card in the game. Now, there is arguments between these 3 as well. I think CR7 as a 96 is absolutely nuts. But I think for me, R9 with the 5'5", with his actual body type, does beat him out still. Now, that is going to be controversial, because I do think CR7 with his body type is very close as well. But I do think for me, R9 does trump him just that little bit, whereas CR7 is obviously a third at the minimum. You can argue second or third, but I just don't think anybody beats Mbappe personally. Then I've gone for Haaland. I think another one that is definitely, I wouldn't say underrated because he's 6.6 mil, but he's definitely not talked about as much. The Rapid Plus on such a big, unique build striker is crazy. Like, that is just what they did to that card is just next level. Of course, he was going to be up in that price budget. Now, the only position that I think you could argue with, now, if we had Cruyff here, that's where you could argue, hence why I've put Cruyff there. I think Greasy, from the very start of the game, has been so influential. His dribbling as a striker, to be the second in one of these pairings, or even like a Lewandowski, Kane, Sorloth, Drogba, he would work incredibly. The 5-5 is perfect. He's got the sweet left foot, the finesse shot, the quick step. He's just got everything you need as a secondary striker. Now, as a solo, as a single striker, I don't think he'd be as good, but I definitely think he would still give you the work, because you're going to have a left or right wing if you're playing him on his own, so he would work well with them anyway. And that's going to be the top 5 in each position. Let me know if you agree, disagree, what's your order in each of them, and I'll catch you all for the next one. Peace.